Today we are looking into the subconscious mind and how it is actually directly related to energy. Because energy is something that cannot be created nor destroyed, but only transmuted through intention. It changes form, whether it be from a physical standpoint of transmuting energy from one form to another, be it electricity or fuel, or transmuting energy in the etheric realm through intention, thoughts, words, deeds, and then having it into our experiences. The subconscious mind is also like energy in that regard. It does the task that it is assigned to do. It goes forth and does as it is programmed. So whatever it is that we're feeding ourselves in our consciousness, in our awareness, whatever we're intaking in, is going into the subconscious and programming it. And therefore we go almost into cycle sometimes because we end up intaking from our eye gates, ear gates, into our subconscious, and then go through the same cycle over and over, and it becomes very difficult to break out of those type of paradigms because we get stuck in circles going around and around. Well, we're going to discuss the consciousness, the subconsciousness, unconsciousness, and also the quantum consciousness or the super consciousness or divine mind. So it can be, I call it the divine mind or accessing to the divine mind after the third eye opening. But first I want to show you some graphs, which are probably going to shock you a little bit when you find out how much of the brain or mind capacity that our consciousness actually uses on the day-to-day level. So let's take a look at that here and now. As you see here in this graph, 5% of the conscious brain is activated and 95% of the subconscious brain is submerged underwater, and it is active but not into our awareness. Here's another graph showing 10% of the conscious mind, giving willpower, long-term memory, logical thinking, critical thinking. There's only 10%. The subconscious mind, 90%. That's in beliefs, emotions, habits, values, protective reactions, long-term memory, imagination, and intuition. 90% submerged underwater. As we look at this graph, we are now looking at the mind as being broken down into three components: the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. The subconscious mind can only process 5 to 7 bits of information at a time. While, on the other hand, the subconscious mind, well, this is like the hard drive of your mind. It behaves the habits that reside here. However, this part of our mind is programmed. So what we see in our conscious mind, whatever we look into, whatever it is we are interested in, the subconscious mind does not make judgments on this is good or this is bad. It sees an interest, and therefore it imprints into the program, and it becomes a part of a manifestation into an experience that we will have. The subconscious mind also is much more powerful than the conscious mind. It processes just the processing, the hard drive, the abilities and capabilities, talk about dunamis power, is held within the subconscious mind. And it, like energy, does exactly what it is programmed to do. Energy goes out with the intentions, cannot be created nor destroyed, but is constantly in flow of transition and morphing itself into, once the task is performed, moving into the next. The subconscious mind is the same way, in the same like manner that you program it in by what is coming in. It's programmed in, and it becomes a part of our day-to-day interactions. Now we have the unconscious mind introduced. The unconscious mind handles all the day-to-day tasks that keep our avatar or our body functioning. It handles our breathing, our heartbeat, digestive system, all of those type of things as a normal part of its activities without having to have any type of focus or any kind of intentions consciously on these things. They just are. It's done through the unconscious mind. But do not worry about whether or not we are feeding our consciousness into the subconscious, which is becoming programmed and making a cycle sometimes that feels like we're going on a hamster wheel day in and day out. And it makes this place appear fixed and immovable because we are bringing in, it's programmed into the subconscious, and then it comes right back out. But there's sacred secrets here. There's information that is going to be revealed that we call quantum consciousness, the Akashic records. I call it the divine mind, or it is in this particular presentation called the superconscious mind, and how we can access this into understanding. But first, let's look at what the definition is of the subconscious mind. The definition of the subconscious is existing in the mind but not immediately available to the consciousness. And under a noun, that one is a verb, and this is a noun. The definition of subconscious is the mental activities just below the threshold of consciousness. Another way to look at the subconscious is that it is, your subconscious mind is an unquestioning servant that works day and night to make your behavior fit a pattern consistent with your emotional thoughts, hopes, and desires. As a man thinketh, so shall he be. Your subconscious mind grows either flowers or weeds in your garden of life, depending on what it is that you are feeding your consciousness, your subconsciousness. What are you paying attention to with your consciousness? Now that we've got an understanding on how actually limiting that our consciousness is, what a small part of our mind that consciousness actually is, and how much we rely on our consciousness. And that goes for education, going to the doctor. We expect for him to know what he's doing. Understanding that we're using between 5 to 10% of our complete mind capacity for consciousness is a very narrow scope of utilization of the power of our mind. Understanding how powerful the programmable subconscious mind is in order to have the manifestations take part that are programmed in through your consciousness on how we pay attention. Paying attention is paying power over to anything outside of us that we are given an ear to, even information that we pick up and think that it would be good to bring awareness to others that may not be the best information or the most healthy, is still programming it into the subconscious mind. Let me explain why. It's just like energy. It doesn't have thought. It doesn't take any concern in any of that. It does exactly as it's programmed to do, just as energy does. The intention goes into the energy carries it out, and then is transformed once the mission is complete. Now, if that energy hits somebody that is awakened and aware and they can feel it coming, they can transmute it. That's what we call it, energy alchemy. Basically, every living being here, whether they're aware of it or not, is an energetic alchemist. We are breathing in and out vibrations and frequencies and programming through what we are seeing and paying attention to by giving our power over to our subconscious mind, then therefore coming into our awareness consciously for the experience, for the expansion. And also with energy, as our intentions go out, whether we're angry with somebody or we're sending love, we are constantly transmuting and alchemizing energy all the time. But do not worry, you guys. There's good news. And the good news is it's not for a secret elect group. The sacred secrets that are coming out into the awareness for the general population today are available for everyone and anyone who is wanting to pick them up and utilize their wholeness and the tools that are available to them. If you need to find it in your Bible, it's in the Bible. If you need to find it in the Quran, it's in the Quran. If you need to find it in the hieroglyphs, it's in the hieroglyphs. There's nothing that is being said here that is so off color that should put anybody off or put anybody in defense. Just understand that we come from a very narrow perspective from the consciousness. Again, 5 to 10% of our mind, of our total mind and our being. That's all we are using to perceive, discern, learn, make an income, raise children, do our finances, to multitask tremendous amounts of information coming in and out of our awareness 24/7 in our conscious awareness. For, it to be such a narrow scope, it's almost like having tunnel vision, and we wonder why it is called the blind leading the blind. And until we reach that born from above experience or that third eye awakening, well, it can be understood how come we were so blind. Kind of gives a little bit more credence to why I couldn't see before all of this started unfolding and unraveling. But let's get into this super consciousness now, because really there is hope and there are answers for anybody seeking, knocking, and desiring to have this awareness come into their being and reach for higher things. It never goes against your free will. Never, ever, ever. All right, so let's get into the super consciousness, the divine mind, quantum consciousness, Akashic records, however you want to look at it right now. Have you had your third eye awakening yet? You're born from above experience, the gateway open to have access to the quantum consciousness, the divine mind, or the super consciousness. Well, let me show you this graph that tells us a little bit more about what the super consciousness is and how that can help us to reprogram the subconscious to have a paradigm shift, mind-altering experience in the here and now. Okay, now let's take a look at this graph on the super consciousness and subconsciousness. Starting with the conscious mind, it says its power equals choices and decisions, ability to think abstractly, focus in the past or future, limited processing capability, short-term memory, 1 to 3 events at a time, 40 bits of info per second. Where the subconscious mind, however, is the power equals habit and manifesting, literal thinking to specific, focuses in present time, massive processing capability, long-term memory, thousands of events at a time, 40 million bits of info per second. Now let's jump on over here to the super conscious mind, the divine mind, or the quantum consciousness, Christ consciousness, third eye awakening, and the access of having what you have access to once that is opened. So the understanding starts to come into our awareness of the ultimate power and wisdom, higher self, God, source, intuition, knowing rather than a belief, understands the bigger picture, infinite scalar capacity beyond space and time, and it will not interfere with free will. It's one thing we need to understand, that even with accessing the divine mind, it does not ever oppress or force its will and over our free will. Everything is always done through free will, the spiritual law and gift that was bestowed upon man since the beginning of time. superconsciousness, by definition, is transcending human from normal circumstances. Basically, accessing the quantum consciousness, or accessing the divine mind, or accessing the super consciousness. What else does the super consciousness do? Okay, the super consciousness, it is your mind, it is your bigger self, it is accessing and the perspective or ideas of superhuman abilities. Now, I don't know about superhuman abilities, but I do know that we have access to what it is that we seek through our heart, as it is, sought for, it is given, and there is everything and anything is possible when we reach the point of connecting back with God Almighty Source, having the born from above experience, or the third eye activation. And it gives us almost like genius thinking, because you do get access to everything that could be possibly in the Akashic records, and broader perspectives. And it contains the qualities of interconnectedness, peace, bliss, clarity, love, altruism, service, safety, and well-being. So when we have access to this, it sees through the lens of unconditional love. The way God sees us in total, complete perfection as created in the beginning, given free will, dominion, sovereignty, and everything bestowed upon us, seen with perfect unconditional love. When we reach to the point of being able to connect and glean and grow from this state of awareness, we can reprogram the subconscious from that vantage point, rather than trying to do it from the conscious level, which through willpower, like I said, can be very, very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, because no, it's not that it's impossible. But when we understand the trees, that the two trees, the tree that where we're judging everything and gapping and labeling good and evil, and then we've got the tree of life. Let's look at when you have connected yourself back up to the super consciousness, the quantum consciousness, the Akashic records, or the divine mind, that you're now eating from the tree of life. You are now looking at your brothers and sisters in a different perspective. It's a very paradigm shifting awareness, and it is beyond comprehension. And it's achievable. It is available. There's nobody that is left out of access to this. So if we're not going after it, it's just because we don't understand that it is something that is permissible and that is allowed. And it absolutely is. So don't sell yourself short on having a full identity reveal. Doesn't take away from your uniqueness, doesn't take away from your willpower, actually enhances everything, and just, it's a paradigm shift. I don't know how else to explain it except for, wow, what an amazing understanding that we come to, and then we get the affirmations for what we see and we interact with day in and day out. Okay, so now that we've got a rudimentary understanding of consciousness, each level of consciousness, understanding what consciousness, our subconscious, which has dunamis power, which is programmed based on what we feed through our consciousness, which is a very, very narrow viewpoint, narrow vantage point. And as we think about all of the things that we do in our consciousness, all of the distractions and confusions and wearing us thin and having us toss our power everywhere, we are just spread out. When we understand this about self, the more we know, the more we will grow. And seeking for the one from above to get connected to the divine within, connect to God, get the renewing of the mind, as Christ called it in the scriptures, then things change. It is not a very difficult task for God. For man, it could be almost impossible. But when you're coming from the divine side, no, nothing is impossible. Anything is possible. And getting the renewing of the subconscious reprogrammed, so that way you are only finding flowers in your garden and no weeds, is a beautiful thing. We no longer eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We're no longer judging our brothers and sisters. We eat from the tree of life, and we love everyone. Although some people still do not know who they are, it doesn't take away from the revelations that we have when we reconnect of the identity that is the truth about each and every single one of them. It's such a beautiful understanding and understanding to know these things and to walk in a peace that is beyond understanding. You know, it's up to you. I just wanted to put the information out in a palatable way to hopefully, get to people to digest it and to make up their own mind with their own sovereignty and their own decisions on what is best for them, for the progression and the growth. From, after all, you guys, we're making a quantum jump together. United we go. And with that, you guys, share what you know and listen so we can grow. And this is it for the Metaphysical is Physical on consciousness, the power of consciousness, the power of the mind. You have no idea how powerful you are. Peace. I'll talk to you soon.